The goblin's cage rattled with the rhythm of the wind. Frost crawled up the bars like thin white vines, whispering against the wood of the lumber train's freight car. Outside, the forest howled, its breath alive with snow. Inside, Liara Valowin adjusted the scarf over her pointed ears and watched the human lumberjack across from her, his shoulders wide, his silence heavier than the blizzard. He hadn't spoken since the auction. He had bought the goblin without looking at her. A single nod, a handful of credits, and a contract signed in thick paper inked with ancient cruelty. When the trader tried to hand him the receipt, he'd simply said, "Don't need proof of shame." Liara hadn't meant to be here. She had come to the border forest to transport her dragons, small, intelligent creatures, bred for warmth and woodcraft, to a new settlement. But when the sale bell rang and she saw the little green figure, trembling under the burlap sack, something in her chest cracked like thin ice. The human had looked sad, not cruel. That was enough to follow him. Now the train clanked to a stop at a station, little more than a platform, and a sign half buried in snow. The man stood, brushing frost from his beard. "We're here." His voice was low, carrying the kind of exhaustion that comes from surviving instead of living. Liara tilted her head. "You're taking her to your home?" He hesitated, eyes flicking to the cage. "I bought her to keep her from them. Don't mean to own nobody." He lifted the cage, muscles flexing beneath his coat, and stepped into the storm. She followed, her dragons clinging under her cloak for warmth. Nyx, the smaller one, whispered a low growl that only she could hear. Solin's chest glowed faintly with ember light, casting halos on the snow. The cabin stood among the black pines, a single lantern burning in the window. It wasn't much, just rough logs, iron hinges, and smoke curling from a crooked chimney, but it was clean, and that meant more than gold. The man Noah, as she'd overheard at the auction, set the cage beside the fire and stared at it for a long time. "She ain't spoken a word," he murmured. "Would you, after what they did?" Liara asked softly. Noah looked up at her then, truly looked, and seemed to notice for the first time that she wasn't human. The pale green shimmer of her eyes caught the firelight. "You're not from the city," he said. "No," Liara replied. "And neither is she." He nodded once. "Figures." He crouched by the cage and unlatched the door. The goblin flinched as the hinge squealed. She was small, her limbs thin but strong. A burlap sack covered her face, knotted at the neck. When Noah reached to untie it, she hissed, the sound halfway between fear and defiance. "It's all right," he said. "Ain't gonna hurt you." His hands were rough, steady. He loosened the knot, and the sack fell away. Liara drew in a breath. The goblin's skin wasn't green, it was pale bronze, bruised in places with patches of paint flaking off. Her ears were long and delicate, not jagged. Her eyes, when they opened, were gold, not the molten glare of feral kind, but clear, searching, alive. "She's not a goblin," Liara whispered. "She's a child." Noah stepped back, shaking his head slowly. "The traitors, they said, they lied," Liara said, "as they always do." The girl, because that's what she was, blinked at the fire, then at them. Her voice was faint, rasped by cold. "Please don't send me back." Noah's throat worked. "Ain't sending you anywhere." He looked at Liara. "You're good with words. You can help me figure out what she is?" Liara knelt beside the child, Nyx slithering onto her shoulder. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. "Mira. Do you remember where you came from, Mira?" Mira shook her head. "There was noise, bright lights. They made me wear the paint. Said it made me worth more." Noah turned away, fists clenching. The fire popped. Outside, wind clawed the cabin walls. Liara touched Myra's hand. It was small, calloused, strong from survival. "You're safe now," she said. For a moment, the three of them stayed like that, the elf, the human, and the child the world had mislabeled. Solin crawled from under Liara's cloak and settled near the fire. his glow filling the room with gentle heat. Mira gasped softly, reaching out. "Dragon," she breathed. "A real dragon." "Two," Leora said, smiling faintly. "Nyx and Solin." Mira giggled, a sound too rare in the snow. It drew something fragile and bright into the room. Something even the blizzard outside couldn't steal. Noah watched them, something shifting behind his tired eyes. "She can stay here," he said finally. "Till we figure it out," Leora nodded. "Then you'll need help. And food. I'll trade labor for a corner of the floor." He blinked. "You'd stay? Why?" Leora looked at the child, then at him. "Because humans have a habit of surprising me. And because kindness is always worth keeping an eye on." Noah gave a small, broken smile, the kind that looked like it hadn't been used in years. "All right then, you've got yourself a roof." The wind howled again, shaking the shutters. Mira flinched, clutching Solin's tail. The dragon crooned softly, the sound like lullaby embers. Noah rose and checked the latch. "Storm's thickening. Tomorrow we'll need to gather wood." Leora stood beside him. "And deal with the men who come looking for what you bought." His jaw tightened. "They can look all they want. She ain't for sale." Leora met his eyes, gray and steady as weathered stone, and nodded. "Then you'd best be ready. They won't ask permission to take." Outside, in the whirling white, lights flickered among the trees, lanterns moving where no path should be. The traders had come early. The storm had not eased by dawn. The world outside the cabin had turned to a whispering white, each tree a shadow painted in snow. But beneath the howling wind, Leora heard something else: footsteps, deliberate and slow, crunching the frost-hardened crust. Noah was already awake, axe in hand, shoulders tense. His breath hung in the cold like smoke. "They're out there," he said quietly. Leora joined him by the window. Her dragon stirred beneath her cloak, Nyx's dark scales blending into the shadows. Solin's glow a faint heartbeat of gold. Beyond the frost-glazed glass, figures moved between the trees, lanterns swaying. "3," she murmured. "Maybe 4, traders." Mira sat by the hearth, wrapped in a patched blanket. Her golden eyes darted to them, fear sharp and fresh. "They came before. They said they'd take me back to the cages." "They won't," Noah said firmly. He glanced at Leora. "They won't, right?" Leora's voice was calm but cold. "Not if I have anything to say about it." The first knock came softly, like a polite request that didn't mean it. "Mr. Hawley," called a voice, a man's, smooth as oil poured over stone. "You've got something that belongs to us." Noah didn't move. "Nothing in this cabin's for sale." The voice laughed, muffled through the door. "Oh, come now. We're reasonable men. You bought damaged property. We'll refund your credit and leave you in peace. Fair trade." Leora's eyes narrowed. "They use words like fairness as camouflage," she murmured. Nyx hissed agreement, scales rippling. Solin's glow grew brighter, casting a soft golden haze over Myra's frightened face. Another knock, harder this time. "Last chance, woodsman. The law says indentured goods must return to the registry. Open the door." Noah gripped his axe tighter. "Law says a lot of things men twist to suit themselves." "Then they'll twist you too," the trader replied. Leora stepped forward, hand raised slightly. "Let me speak to them." Noah turned, startled. "They'll drag you into it. I've been dragged into worse." Her voice was quiet steel. She opened the door. Snow swept in, biting her cheeks. The men stood in a rough line, 4 of them, wrapped in leather coats, faces hidden by scarves and greed. Their lanterns glowed with the faint red tint of tracking sensors. The one in front grinned. "Didn't expect to see an elf in these woods." "You'll find we show up when there's rot to clear," Leora said. He tilted his head. "That cage was marked property of the guild. You're interfering in registered business." "The guild deals in wood and stone," Leora replied evenly. "Not people." Everything's people, sweetheart, once the contract's signed. Nyx hissed from her shoulder, a low, venomous note. Solon slithered from beneath her cloak, wings half spread, eyes burning like two embers. The men flinched back a step before disguising it with bravado. The leader's smirk faltered. Cute pets. Dangerous, too. They're dragons, Leora said. They understand the word dangerous better than you. He took another step forward, snow crunching beneath his boots. Hand over the asset. I won't ask again. Before Leora could answer, Noah's voice came from behind her, deep and steady. You just did. He moved into the doorway, axe at his side, the firelight behind him outlining his frame. You're not taking her. The trader's eyes narrowed. You're willing to die for a creature that isn't even your kind? Noah looked past him, into the white woods where the wind carried the faint cry of something alive trying to stay that way. Kindness don't need a contract. For a long moment, the two men faced each other, the storm swirling around them. Then one of the others shifted a nervous movement, but it was enough. The trader raised his hand, signaling his men. They reached for their weapons. Leora moved first. Nyx launched into the air, a streak of black slicing through snow. Solon followed, exhaling a ribbon of gold flame that hissed against the wind. Leora's hand swept upward, and the snow itself seemed to twist. She whispered an old elven word, one that meant stand. The drift surged, burying the trader's boots. Startled shouts cut through the gale. One fired a pistol. The bolt went wide, exploding harmlessly against a tree. Noah's axe met another's weapon with a ringing clang. The man stumbled, surprise more than pain in his eyes. Leave! Leora shouted over the storm. Before mercy freezes. But greed rarely listens. The leader lunged, grabbing at Mira's wrist through the doorway. She screamed. Leora's pulse went sharp as glass. She thrust her hand forward, light burst from her palm. Not fire, not magic as humans called it, but raw focus made visible. The man flew backward into the snow, the glow fading from his eyes. The others ran. Their lanterns bobbed into the storm until they vanished completely. Only the wind remained, howling like something denied its prey. Leora closed the door and leaned against it, breath quick. Nyx fluttered to her shoulder, Solon coiling against her throat, their warmth grounding her back into silence. Noah exhaled shakily, setting the axe down. You all right? She nodded. You? Been worse. He rubbed his arm where a bruise was already blooming. Mira crept from the hearth, eyes wide. You didn't have to fight them, she whispered. They hurt people who do. Noah crouched beside her. I've already lost someone to men like that. I ain't losing anyone else. Leora looked out the frost-fogged window. They'll come again. And next time, they'll bring the law with them. Then we'll be gone before they do, Noah said. I've got an old hauler down by the river. Still runs, if I can get her thawed. You mean to leave the forest? He nodded. If it keeps her safe. Leora studied him, the tired eyes, the scars on his hands, the way he spoke of duty without expecting praise. Humanity, she thought, could be frighteningly beautiful when it decided to care. I'll come, she said simply. He looked at her, half surprised, half relieved. You sure? She smiled faintly. You'll need someone who can make snow listen. Mira giggled softly, the sound trembling but real. Outside, the storm began to ease, snowflakes drifting like feathers instead of knives. The cabin, battered but unbroken, held the fragile silence of hope. Then, faintly through the still air, a hum began, a mechanical pulse, deep and distant. Leora turned toward the window. In the sky, behind the veil of snow, lights flickered cold, metallic, deliberate. Not traitors this time, she murmured. Something worse. Noah followed her gaze. What is it? Not who, she said quietly. What? The wind shifted, carrying a strange, metallic echo through the trees. An approaching engine older than the forest itself. Asterisk. The hum grew deeper, rolling through the ground like thunder trapped beneath the ice. The cabin walls trembled, dust falling from the rafters. Leora felt the vibrations settle into her bones. The pitch was too low, too deliberate, too cold. This was no sled, no human vehicle. Noah stepped beside her at the window, eyes narrowing against the glare. That sound. I've heard it before. Back when the guild sent collection ships through the mining zones. Not traders then, Leora murmured. Collectors. Mira clutched Solon close to her chest, the dragon curling protectively around her. They'll find us again, won't they? Leora turned, kneeling before the child. They'll try. But trying is not the same as winning. Nyx hissed softly, wings flaring. The small dragon's scales shimmered with tension. Outside, the tree line broke open as a dull silver craft descended through the storm. Its hull lights sliced the night into beams of artificial day. The insignia was unmistakable, the guild's spiral emblem, painted in black over steel. Noah's hand found the axe leaning against the wall. We can't fight that. Then we don't, Leora said. We move. She crossed the cabin in 3 long strides, pulling a satchel from her pack. Inside were vials of emerald fluid and a folded device that hummed faintly when touched. Her hands moved with precision grace forged by necessity. There's a path under the ridge, she said. A frozen stream that runs to the river mouth. If we reach it, the ice can hide us. The ship landed with a hiss that shook snow from the roof. Through the window, figures stepped out, 3 men and a woman, all clad in black thermoplastic armor. Their masks glowed blue in the gloom. One held a scanner that swept the cabin like a blade. They've already locked onto us, Noah said. We'll never make the ridge before they breach the door. Leora fastened her cloak and met his gaze. Then we change what they lock onto. She threw open the door. The wind howled in, scattering snow through the firelight. Nyx darted out first, streaking into the night like a black arrow. Solon followed, his scales igniting in radiant gold. The soldiers lifted their weapons, but the dragons moved too fast, light and shadow twisting together. Their roars cracked the air, half flame, half thunder. Leora stepped into the snow, raising her arm. The vials in her hand shattered against the drifts, spilling green fire that sank into the earth. The forest groaned. The snow began to move, not melting, but rising, reshaping itself under her whispered command. Go! She shouted back toward Noah. Take the girl. No! Mira cried, but Noah lifted her easily, running through the back door toward the slope behind the cabin. The guild enforcers pushed forward, their scanners cutting through the swirling storm. The leader shouted something lost to the wind, but Leora didn't hear him. Her focus narrowed until the world was nothing but snow and flame. The drifts surged like living waves, folding around the soldiers. Their shots went wild, beams carving harmless tunnels through air and frost. Nyx slammed into one, knocking his weapon away. Solon's fire caught another's armor, fusing it into useless slag, but they kept coming. Always more. Always relentless. Leora's chest burned with cold and exhaustion. The green fire she had summoned flickered, waning as her strength thinned. The forest itself groaned, as if mourning. Then, through the storm, she saw them, Noah and Mira at the ridge's edge, shadows against white. He turned once, saw her still standing by the burning snow, and shouted her name. She couldn't hear it over the wind, but she saw his mouth move, run, instead. She smiled. Nyx wheeled above her, screeching in protest. Solon landed beside her, wings spread wide, his heat cutting through the cold. Together, she whispered. When the guild soldiers broke through the final wave of snow, they found her waiting. Her palms glowed like molten glass. The dragons flanked her, living shields of light and dark. This forest, she said softly, remembers every act of cruelty done beneath its branches. Tonight, it learns mercy instead. The fire erupted not wild, but purposeful, sweeping out in a ring that consumed only what meant harm. It rose high enough to touch the clouds, carving the night into color. From the ridge, Noah shielded Mira's eyes. The heat rolled over them, fierce but clean. When the light faded, the cabin was gone. The guild ship smoldered, its hull half buried in glassed snow. And where Leora had stood, only a blackened staff remained, its surface etched with elven runes, still warm. Is she? Mira began. Noah looked down at the staff, then at the dragon circling above, one of shadow, one of light. She's not gone, he said quietly. She's watching. He lifted Mira into the sled by the river's edge. The little craft's engine sputtered, coughed, then caught. The glow of its thrusters lit the trees in gold and amber as they rose above the forest. The two dragons followed, soaring side by side. Nyx's shadow brushed the treetops. Solin's fire traced a path through the dawn. Mira reached toward them. Will they come with us? They'll lead the way, Noah said. The sled tilted toward the horizon, where sunlight began to cut through the storm's remains. Somewhere behind them, the snow settled over the ruins of the cabin, gentle and quiet again. And if the wind passed through just right, it carried a whisper soft, strong, and full of promise. Humanity still wins. Subscribe for more epic sci-fi stories. Let the stars guide your next adventure. *.